Oh, the sketch. Did I already X out? Yeah. You've seen the sketch. Okay, so Nathan Thompson, flat earther extraordinaire, has a new video. Says, breaking news, USA Today fact checks Flat Earth group and says this is true. And he immediately, on the opening here, says, it's about Operation Paperclip. Flat Earthers will use the fact that Operation Paperclip happened. If you don't know, after World War II, once the Cold War started being a thing, the U.S. government started recruiting ex-Nazi scientists in order to develop stuff like NASA, although it wasn't even NASA yet, to develop rocketry and other stuff for the United States government in the Cold War. This is a true thing. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is like a real thing that happened. It's been, what's the word I'm thinking of? Declassified at this point. This is a real thing that happened, and everyone knows about it. This isn't a secret. However, Flat Earthers will use this to be like, NASA's full of Nazis, and they make space up as a fake thing because they're Nazis. So that's where the disconnect with reality is. Yes, Operation Paperclip was a thing. Both Russia and the US recruited Nazi scientists, actually. But, yeah, that doesn't mean NASA's fake. So, let's see what Nathan has to say about this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rock and roll. Apparently last week we were in U.S.
Make sure you knock off Flat Earth if you have it on the card. I don't think I have it. Tiger White 94 with 10 bits. It just shows you how much justice matters when ex-Nazis have skills the U.S. can exploit. True. I read some of the article on it because I knew we were going to do this video. The president basically said, hey, if they're like not every scientist who worked for the Nazis necessarily was like a, an Aryan supremacist piece of shit. There were certain Nazi scientists who, and I'm not absolving them, they work for the Nazis. At the end of the day, they're a Nazi, period. But the rule from the president was like, if there's someone who was like full in on Nazi ideology and they were like a war criminal POS, then absolutely do not hire them. However, then one of the intelligence agencies whose task it was to recruit these people would, let's say they'd whitewash the history of some of these people. So yeah, I'm sure there were some pretty effed up people in Operation Paperclip working for the U.S. government. Not good. Not good at all.
Today, they did an article titled, Fact Check. Nazi scientists were brought to the U.S. through Operation Paperclip. The claim, after World War II, Nazi scientists joined NASA through Operation Paperclip. Now, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Consider liking the video if you enjoy it. I'm going to read through this article, ladies and gentlemen, and point out a few things as we go through. Let's see what they said. There have been many events, both big and small, that have shaped U.S. history. Among them, a Facebook post claims in a secret U.S. program that recruited Nazis. A modified version of the popular meme of Homer Simpson vanishing into a hedge depicts Simpson wearing a swastika on one shoulder and an arm extended.
Tucker White 94 with 10 bits. Even the rule wasn't always followed. Werner von Braun, the guy who made the U.S. space program, developed the V-2 rockets that hit allied cities in Europe. Oh, I know. That's what I was saying. I said earlier in the thing, that was the rule, but they didn't always follow it. I think Werner von Braun even said something to the effect of, like, I regret the things I did to the Nazis in the war, but yeah, it doesn't absolve him. It doesn't absolve him.
In a Nazi salute. World War II ends, reads the text above, which goes on to suggest former Nazi scientists subsequently shifted over to NASA, is illustrated by Simpson re-emerging in a t-shirt emblazoned with the agency's distinctive logo. And
that is a funny meme. I agree.
A red baseball cap with the American flag. The sentiments within the comments seems largely accepting of the claim. Shout out to everyone in the official Flat Earth and Globe discussion. You guys are so...
So what he's about to say most likely is that, oh, NASA is entirely a Nazi organization because there were Nazis or ex-Nazis who worked for it. Again, I think Operation Paperclip was messed up. I'm not defending the actions. However, if we're trying to make the claim that Nazis controlled NASA and NASA's mission is to fake space because they're Nazis, and I'm not even sure what a Nazi motive for faking space would be, but the number of scientists who were recruited in Operation Paperclip were about 1,600, okay? Operation Paperclip recruited 1,600 scientists who were former Nazi party members into the U.S. to come and work on various projects. The thing is, not all of them were from rocketry, okay? So this 1,600 is overall. Many of them were other sorts of weapons experts, chemical experts, engineers, all sorts of different things. Not all of them were people who worked in rocketry. The original NASA was staffed by, oh boy, I know I looked this up, and I had it pulled up at some point. Let me see if I can find it. How many people worked for NASA originally? The original NASA staff had 8,000 employees. So even if every single Nazi scientist went to go work for NASA, which they weren't. Right, not all of these were people who worked in rocketry and space exploration stuff. They'd still be vastly outnumbered by non-Nazi scientists. So the idea that, like, NASA itself was some sort of, like, crypto-Nazi organization is completely unfounded. It's not the case. This is not a Hydra shield situation for those who want to make the comparison. Smitty Werben Jenger Manjensen, thank you for following.
Woke. I love you guys. What was the alternative for them? Asked one, since her Führer liked to shoot people. Art imitates life, wrote another, sharing a gift featuring images from the Marvel movie franchise of an evil Nazi scientist character and a newspaper clipping with the headline, German scientists recruited by U.S.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of the stuff that happened in, like, the MCU movie, Winter Soldier, I think that was based on Operation Paperclip. I think that's where they got the idea.
There's nothing funny about the
USA Today awaits
MMO Addicted with 10 bits. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some scientists were not given a choice. Some of our engineers, despite being, quote, subhuman trash, were still forced to work under threat of their families being sent into camps. It was a cruel regime, yeah.
Comment from the Facebook user, who might be me, I don't know, I haven't seen any messages from USA Today, but I did post that meme, who posted the meme in the public group Official Flat Earth and Globe discussion. Now, USA Today, I just want to correct you here. It is the Official Flat Earth and Globe discussion.
Ho ho, made a typo. Got 'em. The Earth is flat. You made a typo, USA Today. Got 'em.
I don't know why anyone would be talking about flat Earth and gloves. But moving on. Operation Paperclip. In 1945, the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, a subcommittee established by the Joint Intelligence Committee of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was tasked with retrieving German scientists, doctors, and engineers who were identified as intellectually vital to the Third Reich. Journalist Annie Jacobsen states in her 2014 interview that this was prompted by the Allies' concern over Hitler's potential weapons arsenal. Oh, right, gotta justify it, right? Oh, we were scared, right? We had to recruit Nazi scientists who tortured people. Fall of 1940.
Again, I don't want to defend these guys. I agree. I don't think the U.S. should have, like, recruited them. I totally get that, at least if they weren't people who were, like, you know, forced into it or whatever. I understand if someone was, like, forced by the Nazis into doing certain things. I understand that they're not necessarily culpable in the same way someone who volunteers would be. But, like, the implication that every single person in Operation Paperclip was involved in actual, like, torture of other human beings, probably not the case. You can argue that they're, like, morally culpable for being part of the regime, and I would agree with that. but acting like every single person in Operation Paperclip personally was involved in, like, the disgusting human experimentation done by the Nazis, not accurate, and if you're gonna try and criticize people, you should at least do so in an accurate fashion.
44, right after the Normandy landings, scattered among the Allies' troops.
Dr. Gamble says, shoot, I need to be more careful. Not sure what that's in regard to. MMO Addicted, what is less excusable is the companies and families which got rich using slave labor and then flipped on the Nazis in the end in exchange for keeping their stuff. Yeah, agree.
Are these little units of scientific intelligence officers, and they're working to find out Hitler's biological weapons, his chemical weapons, and his atomic weapons, which are a hoax. Nukes are not real, just so you guys know. Well,
wait, Nathan doesn't believe nuclear weapons exist? Nathan, oh boy, bad news. I hate to break it to you. Nuclear weapons exist. It's basically the only reason the Cold War didn't get hot. Why do you think the United States and Russia didn't end up starting a ground war if nuclear weapons don't exist? Like, why would you think that's the case?
Atomic. I gotta research that a little more. There's probably a difference between atomic and nuclear weapons. But nuclear...
Oh god, Nathan is so stupid. No, Nathan, atomic weapons are nuclear weapons. Atomic weapons and nuclear weapons are the same thing. Daddy Sume, wow, that is super confusing. Yeah.
Nuclear weapons are a joke. Said Jacobson, author of Operation Paperclip, the secret intelligence program to bring Nazi scientists to America. These intelligence officers eventually discovered, while the atomic weapons program was not as advanced as initially feared, Hitler's biochemical weapons were. The hunt...
Daddy Sume with 10 bits. No, I'm referring to streaming software. I'm confused. Ah, okay.
For the scientific treasure and ultimately for the scientists themselves, thus ignited Operation Overcast, renamed Paperclip for the paperclips attached to the files of the most troublesome cases, Jacobson writes in her books. The U.S. was not alone in this endeavor, right? Got to justify it some more, right? Oh, we didn't do it by ourselves. Britain, France, and especially the Soviet Union.
Again, I'm not defending it, nor am I saying, like, they're defending it, but, like, that's just a historical fact. It bears mentioning, like, hey, by the way, every government was doing this to some extent or another. Doesn't make it better, that's for sure, but it is the case nonetheless, so if you're talking about it, it makes sense to bring it up.
Sought to enlist these German scientific experts, as well as U.S.-Soviet technological rivalry marked by the space race, which was a hoax, space is fake. And
no, it's not. Space is real. We are in space. We're just on a planet in space. Fun fact.
And Cold War would also serve as a motivation and justification for Operation Paperclip's existence. By the fall of 1945, German scientists started arriving on U.S. soil. Not all of them men recruited were NASA or SS officers, but the most prominent and valued among them were, having either worked directly with Hitler or leading members of the Nazi Party, such as Heinrich Himmler or Hermann Göring.
Pretty sure it's Heinrich Himmler.
Werner von Braun, a rocket engineer, was instrumental in developing the first U.S. ballistic missile, the Redstone, and later the Saturn V rocket. Now, while we're talking about Werner von Braun, let me pull up my speech. NASA founders. Who do we got here? Aleister Crowley, 33rd degree Freemason, founder of the Satanic Temple, Order Temple.
Jack Whiteside Parsons was an unusual man. He founded both the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the Aerojet Engineering Corporation, created pyrotechnics for the film industry, wrote a book of poems, and masturbated onto magical tablets. That's a sentence I didn't expect to encounter today. In an attempt to conjure a lover. At Wired UK, Olivia Salon intertwines her interview with biographer George Pendle with a look into the rocket engineer's occult-tinted history. While it's arguable if Parsons is the forgotten figure Pendle paints him to be, it's amazing to see how a disciple of the notorious Aleister Crowley contributed to space technology. Okay, so Aleister Crowley was not part of NASA. This guy was, who happened to like Aleister Crowley for some reason. So that's another lie. Good job.
Orientis, black magician, called himself the Beast, 666. And these are all his buddies. Jack Parsons, Crowley's disciple, occultist.
Wait, okay, I didn't look at the other people on this list. His list of NASA founders includes L. Ron Hubbard and Walt Disney. What? Let's look at the actual NASA founders. Dwight D. Eisenhower, obviously. Doon. Creation. From 1946, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics had been experimenting with rockets such as the supersonic Bell X-1. In the early 50s, there was a challenge to launch an artificial satellite for the International Geophysical Year, 1957-58. An effort for this was the American Project Vanguard after the Soviet space program's launch of the world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik, on October 4th, 1957. The attention of the United States turned towards its own fledgling space efforts. The U.S. Congress, alarmed by the perceived threat to national security and technological leadership known as the Sputnik crisis, urged immediately and swift action. President Dwight D. Eisenhower and his advisors counseled more deliberate measures. On January 12, 1958, NACA organized a special committee on space technology headed by Guyver Stever. On January 14, 1958, NACA Director Hugh Dryden published a national research program for space technology. Antipodean Squid with 100 bits. Lying liars who lie and can't do anything but lie about who founded NASA. Yeah, Nathan's a liar. Crowley founded the religion of Thelema, not Satanic Temple. Just saying, because facts. Okay, good to know. And then Stellar Sea Cow. L. Ron Hubbard was friends with Jack Parsons. They were roommates at one point, would do ritual magic together, the masturbating on the tablets thing, and L. Ron Hubbard stole Jack's girlfriend at one point. Oh, God. While this new federal agency would conduct all non-military space activity, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, was created in February 1958 to develop space technology for American application. On July 29, 1958, Eisenhower signed the National Aeronautics and Space Act establishing NASA. When it began operations on October 1st, 1958, NASA absorbed the 43-year-old NACA intact. Its 8,000 employees, an annual budget of $100 million, 3 major research laboratories, Langley Aeronautical Laboratory, Ames Aeronautical Laboratory, the Lewis Flight Propulsion Laboratory, and 2 small test facilities. Elements of the Armored Ballistic Missile Agency and the United States Naval Research Laboratory were incorporated into NASA. A significant contributor to NASA's entry into the space race with the Soviet Union was the technology from the German rocket program led by Werner von Braun, who is now working for the Army Ballistics Missile Agency, which in turn incorporated the technology of American scientist Robert Goddard's earlier works. Earlier research efforts within the U.S. Air Force and many of ARPA's early space programs were also transferred to NASA. In December 1958, NASA gained control of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a contractor facility operated by the California Institute of Technology. So yeah, no, Walt Disney and L. Ron Hubbard and Aleister Crowley had nothing to do with the founding of NASA. I missed Daddy Sume's message. Sorry, I'll get to it in a sec. Stellar Sea Cow, read that. Daddy Sume, where was your last one? He's literally quoting SCP. Someone is trolling him with SCP lore. Oh no! Foundation, for those of you who don't know, SCP is a community writing project where SCP stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. It's a imaginary agency that gets a hold of like objects or locations that are supernatural or sci-fi in nature, and then the articles, which are like fan fiction, are basically written as if they're files from the SCP database, if that makes sense. Special containment procedures. Foundation personnel are to liaise with UNUSA and other government, corporate, and academic agencies pursuant to the observation, exploration, and excavation of SCP-4220. Under Protocol Eyes Wide Shut, the following provisions are met. International laws restricting commercial mining, exploration, and colonization of SCP-4220's surface are to be expanded and strictly enforced. Seismological studies of SCP-4220's interior are to be suppressed or falsified. Studies of lunar lava tubes are to be presented to whatever extent is feasible. Oh, it's the moon. Is it the moon? It's the moon.
That's right, capitalistic propaganda.
Thank you to, Tanuki Dave for following. SCP-4220 refers to the Earth's moon. Current scientific consensus holds that the moon is the second densest satellite in the solar system, featuring a distinct crust, mantle, and core. This is inaccurate. A Foundation-funded research mission to the lunar surface conducted in 19 redacted determined that the moon is hollow. Despite this, SCP-4220 exerts a gravitational force significantly more powerful than its estimated mass should permit. The lunar regolith has an average depth of approximately 6 kilometers. You get it. It's a fun little like fanficky Men in Black story about, you know, what the moon is like. Addendum 4220.1 Historical Summary. By the 60s, both Americans and Soviets recognized that the knowledge of SCP-4220 posed a threat to normalcy for their respective cultures. However, the nature of the space race meant that neither side could stop their programs to land a man on the moon without incurring significant socio-cultural and political losses. Publicly, both countries competed with non-anomalous technology to achieve this goal. But privately, America and Russian scientists engaged in a secondary clandestine space race, one driven by anomalous assets and paratechnology. This race was conducted to reach the moon in secret, discover its true nature, and determine whether or not it could be weaponized. I love SCP. It's very fun. It is likely that Soviet Union's program inadvertently brought SCP-4220-2's component parts together, and America's program inadvertently provided the materials to catalyze its formation. Addendum 4220.2 Helios. Upon learning of Russia's Luna program for the Soviet defectors, then-President John F. Kennedy, who had previously resisted the urges of anomalies in the space race, reluctantly authorized the Black Project, codenamed Helios. The goal of the Helios program was to determine the nature of the artificial structure of the moon and take control of them before the Soviet Union. Due to Russia's lead in the space race, Kennedy allowed the Pentagram to take control of the project under the direction of late John Whiteside and Jack Parsons. The Inner Circle, Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, and L. Ron Hubbard. Okay. So this is a, SCP, which is a known, like, fanficky website. It's all for fiction that you write as a community. And he's like, he's just repeating, like, what was said in SCP as if it's a real thing. That's fantastic.
This Black Lodge magician, Satanist, head of Ordo Temple Orientis California Lodge. Oh, and Jack Parsons was also JPL, Jack Parsons Laboratory, which they later changed to Jet Propulsion's Laboratory because you don't want to be associated with occultist, black magic, Satanists.
I would imagine it was always the Jet Propulsion's Laboratory. Daddy Sume with 10 bits. Long story short, Aleister Crowley inseminated the moon goddess, and now his face is etched in the dark side of the moon mid-orgasm face. I love SCP. It's so stupid.
Ron Hubbard, Crowley's disciple, mass mind controller, black magician, Satanist, founder of the Church of Scientology cult. Werner von Braun, ex-Nazi, director of the German V-2 rocket program, recruited under Operation Paperclip. Walt Disney, 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. Revelation 28 through 7. Well, I got to change that. It's not 8 to 7. It's going to be 7 to 8. Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations. And Matthew 24:24 says, insomuch that if it were possible, they will deceive the very elect. But God said, you are my...
I got to see. What does this source say it is? I can't even read it. Search YouTube for NASA and Freemasonry. That's not a source, Nathan. That's not how sources work. This one actually has a link, but I can't click on it because it's a YouTube video, so that's not helpful, and I can't read it.
My people, and you will know the truth. So, if it was possible, they would deceive us. But it's not. Sorry, guys. As a Nazi ideologue and member of the SS, he traveled to the Buchenwald concentration camp where he handpicked slaves to work for him as laborers, said Jacobson in a 2014 interview with NPR. Herbert Strugold, a psychologist and medical researcher, headed the German Air Force Institute of Aviation Medicine, known for its torturous medical experiments on inmates from the Dachau concentration camp. Strugold claimed ignorance of any such activity until after the war, yet he appeared among a list of 95 doctors at an October 1942 conference discussing their findings. In the U.S., he was chief scientist of the Aerospace Medical Division at Brooks Air Force and has been credited as the father of space medicine.
Yeah, it's messed up that the U.S. recruited Nazis. Agreed. Completely 100% agreed. Now, how does this prove that the Earth is flat, Nathan? How does the moral failure of the United States somehow prove that the Earth is flat?
Walter Schreiber, a former Nazi general, also oversaw inhumane medical experiments involving bioweapons that resulted in countless deaths. Following the war, he was captured by Soviets, but defected to the U.S. He worked for various government entities before finally settling in Texas at the Air Force School of Aviation Medicine, Jacobson writes. While Schreiber would later serve as a witness during the Nuremberg trials, he, von Braun, Strugold, and the rest of their Nazis brought to the U.S. would never be held accountable for their own atrocities. Operation Paperclip remained secret throughout much of the Cold War. But thankfully, we have an official Flat Earth and Globe discussion bringing light to these truths.
What? The Flat Earthers did not uncover Operation Paperclip, Nathan. It was declassified at some point, like in the 90s or something. What are you talking about? It just became public knowledge because it was, like, declassified at some point. What? Flat Earth had nothing to do with this becoming public information, you narcissistic liar. My God.
We rate this claim true because it is supported by our research. Operation Paperclip was a secret initiative launched by the U.S. government to recruit German engineers, doctors, physicists, chemists, and other scientific experts for U.S. technological advancement, especially in anticipation of the Cold War. Many recruited German scientists did work for NASA and various other government entities.
Yes, that's messed up. So why do you think space is fake? Just a question. Like, there were already American scientists who weren't Nazis trying to work on rocketry and exploring, like, the ideas of space, astronomy, stuff like that, right? So why did the United States government recruit Nazi scientists to explore something that is fake, according to you? Like, why would the United States say, hey guys, you know how we know space is fake because we're the government? Wouldn't it be fun to hire Nazi scientists just for funsies, even though space doesn't exist? Like, what would the purpose be, Nathan? What would the actual purpose be if space didn't exist?
They were not held responsible for their war crimes. Oh, guys, and by the way, other government entities, what they mean right there is NASA and the CIA. So, thank you.
I don't know if it was. I don't know if it would be the CIA. I don't know. I don't know if any of the people brought over in Operation Paperclip were in, like, military intelligence or just general intelligence. I don't know. I think they were mostly, like, engineers and scientists and stuff.
So much for bringing light to this situation, USA Today. I know you guys have a hard time spelling official Flat Earth and Globe discussion, but
it's a typo, Nathan. You're very hung up. Are you okay?
Hopefully in the next article you write about us, you'll get that correct. So, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Also,
Let me see if I can find... Do you have a link to the actual thing? No, you don't. Of course you don't. Lame.
so I'll see you in the next
Nothing funny
heavily
about the rule of
censored
capitalism.
and demonetized video.
I hope it's demonetized. Wing the Ultimate Nug with 10 bits. I figured it out. They created fake NASA to money launder billions of dollars into their pockets. It all makes sense. How do they keep everyone silent? Yeah, but why with Nazis, you know? You could do that without the Nazis. USA Today Flat Earth Fact Check. Bum ba-dum bum ba-dum bum bum. Claim after World War II. So this is this. Was this part of a series they're doing? Like, what's the... Thank you for supporting our journalism. You can subscribe here. Blah, blah, blah. There's all their sources. True. But, like, what's the rest? Is this part of, like, a series they're doing on fact-checking flat earthers? Or what? Fact check. Let me see if I go back to the fact check. Civil rights of 1964 does not create religious-based exemption from mask mandates. Interesting. I wonder why they fact-checked that specifically and not other things. Weird choice. Anyway, that's enough of Nathan. Nathan, yeah, Operation Paperclip was a thing. It was messed up. I agree. The United States government has done countless disgusting things in its history. It doesn't take a whole lot. I'm sure there's an entire Wikipedia article you could go read on, like, atrocities committed by the United States government or, like, questionable moral things. I'm sure that's a thing you can find. You can look at all sorts of really gross stuff. That doesn't mean space is fake. It doesn't. It doesn't mean space is fake. There would be no motive to make people think space is real if it wasn't. And even beyond, like, NASA and the United States government, it would mean every government in the world is doing the same thing. Not just current governments, but every government going back
That's right,
hundreds and
capitalistic propaganda.
hundreds and hundreds of years. Just doesn't make a lot of sense. Wing the Ultimate Nug, I figured it out. They created fake NASA. Oh no, already read that one. Colossus TV, thank you for following. So yeah, that's enough of Nathan for today. Silly, silly Nathan.